Ready to step into the world of luxurious hotels? Welcome to the Hotel Leaders Podcast. Whether you're an industry insider, a hospitality enthusiast, or simply curious about the world of hotels, this podcast is your backstage pass to the heart of the hospitality industry. I'm your host, Peter D'Amore. I have a fascination with the hotel industry, and over the last quarter of a century, I have studied it, worked in it, and passed the torch to the next generation. Now, as part of an emerging hotel industry tech startup, I am independent from any specific hotel or chain and able to talk about the industry with a balanced perspective and a certain level of expertise. It's time to check in. Welcome to episode 1, where we delve into one of the world's truly iconic hotels. This hotel features in the top 5 for many hoteliers and world travellers alike. It is none other than Raffles Singapore. Raffles represents almost everything I love about hotels. You get a strong sense that Raffles employees really love what they do and are exceptional at it. The bricks and mortar of the hotel, with its stark white, contrast in such a lovely way with the lush green foliage of the hotel's tropical gardens. There is an X factor. Maybe it's the historical hotel furnishings, maybe it's the celebrities, but we'll come to that later in the podcast. Raffles Singapore has changed hands a few times and is probably worth hundreds of millions or perhaps even $1 billion, making it one of the most highly valued hotels in the world. Raffles occupies prime real estate in one of the best locations in one of both the smallest and wealthiest countries on earth. Countless memories have been created for generations, with guests travelling from around the world to come here and experience an exquisite combination of grandeur and charm. For more than a century, there was only one Raffles hotel. However, you will hear the name Raffles echoed around the world in the years to come, as the French hotel giant, Accor, purchased the brand as part of a $2.7 billion deal. Raffles is now opening new hotels in Boston, Macau, Saudi Arabia, and even London, where the hotel's namesake, Sir Stamford Raffles, once called home. Stamford Raffles was the son of a ship's captain and attended a moderately priced boarding school in London. At age 14, he was put to work as a clerk in the East India Company, and within a decade had been promoted to Assistant Secretary to the Governor of Penang in modern-day Malaysia. At the age of 30, he successfully mounted a military expedition in Java against the Dutch and the French, which saw him appointed Lieutenant Governor of the Dutch East Indies. And he was knighted at the age of 36 by his friend Princess Charlotte's father, King Regent George IV. The following year he returned to Southeast Asia, and as he spoke Malayan through some clever politicking involving locals, the Dutch, the British Crown, and even a sultan, he set up a post in and became the founder of modern Singapore. Here is an old recording of the history with a link in the description.
Only a little over 100 years ago, Stamford Raffles, a far-sighted official of the famed East India Company, realized Britain's great need of an important base in the Indies for future expansion of Eastern trade, and against advice and wishes of his company, secured by agreement from the Sultan of Johor an island off the extreme southern tip of the Malay Peninsula, and here founded Singapore, a settlement destined to become, within less than a century, one of the greatest commercial ports and the most strategic point of the British Empire.
Stamford Raffles established some of the things for which Singapore remains famous for, such as promoting free trade and introducing fines for bad behaviours, such as smoking opium. Today, this prohibition has been extended to smoking anything in public, including e-cigarettes. A few years later, after Raffles had returned to London, a small privately owned beach bungalow was to open in Singapore. In 1887, the 10-room property was purchased by the SARKIES brothers, with the intention of turning it into a high-end hotel. The SARKIES brothers were incredible entrepreneurs and hoteliers. They were also Armenian refugees from modern-day Iran. The four SARKIES brothers, Martin, Styran, Aviat and Arshak, came from a long line of merchants who for centuries had prospered via the ancient trading route known as the Silk Road. However, by the 1860s, the Silk Road was in decline due to the opening of the Suez Canal, which provided a shortcut from Europe to Asia by boat. At the same time, Armenians like the SARKIES brothers were being persecuted by the Turks and the Russians and were forced to seek fortunes elsewhere. Martin SARKIES, an engineer, moved to Penang, and Styran joined him after spending several years trading in Java. Meanwhile, back in Europe, in 1872, Thomas Cook founded the world's first travel agency, as people looked to travel further afield in the search of new adventures. But even using modern steamships and railways, the journey to Asia took several weeks. Once there, the available lodgings suited local habits and diets, but not those of pampered Westerners. The time was right for the SARKIES brothers to make their mark. Styran was keen to develop the new world of hospitality, perceiving it as potentially more profitable than his trading and auctioning operations. He was soon dabbling in other businesses, and, with his brother Martin, this included refurbishing an existing house in Penang to create the Eastern Hotel, which opened in 1884. When a third brother, Aviat, arrived a year later, the brothers opened their second hotel in Penang called the Oriental. The youngest brother, Arshak, managed the Eastern and Oriental, whilst Styran arrived in Singapore, rented the 10-room hotel on One Beach Road, and bought it a few months later from an Arab trader. The SARKIES named their new hotel after Singapore's founder, Sir Stamford Raffles, and over the next 7 years increased the number of rooms from 10 to 75 with the purchase of the adjoining property. Within another 5 years, the hotel's famed main building, constructed in elegant neo-Renaissance architecture, had its grand opening in 1899. The hotel now boasted 100 suites, 2 occupied by Styran and his family. A wide, richly decorated veranda surrounded the building, protecting the rooms from sunlight and the frequent Singaporean rain, while the new billiard room and bar were wisely housed in a separate building. The hotel furnishings suited the equatorial climate. Louvres allowed cool breezes to drift through the property with the aid of mechanical and electrical ceiling fans. In fact, the SARKIES brothers were the very first innovators in Singapore to have electric lighting installed in a hotel. The hotel had a dining room catering for up to 200 guests and even boasted a French chef. For many decades, the Raffles was the place to be, and celebrity guests were too numerous to name, but included Rudyard Kipling, who may have written the Jungle Book at the Raffles. Here's one of the few surviving recordings of Kipling's voice.
We know that when all the men who do things have done them, and after all the men who say things about those doings have said them, it is only words, nothing but words that live to show the present how men worked and thought in the past. And we do not know whose words they will be.
British playwright and novelist Somerset Maugham wrote many stories under the frangipani tree in the Palm Court. He once said that Raffles Hotel stands for all the fables of the exotic East. Guests also included Charlie Chaplin, icon of the silent movie era, Hollywood royalty, Elizabeth Taylor, and of course John Wayne, star of countless Western cowboy movies. Pulitzer Prize-winning writers such as Ernest Hemingway and James A. Michener, who had a lifelong love of travel and Raffles Singapore, and now has a hotel suite which bears his name, said, "To have been young and had a room at the Raffles was life at its best." Guests even included Peter Jackson, director of Lord of the Rings, King of Pop Michael Jackson, many heads of state and royalty, including Queen Elizabeth II. As a side note, my personal favourite food and beverage establishment at the hotel is the Long Bar. As a guest, you're encouraged in the unusual practice of throwing peanut shell casings onto the bar floor. Also, in the Long Bar around 1915, a barman named Ngiam Tong Boon, or Yan Chong Ven in Mandarin, invented the Singapore SLING cocktail, famous the world over. In fact, I used to teach students how to make this when I taught cocktails at the Blue Mountains Hotel School in China. It's a shaken gin-based cocktail with a long list of ingredients, including cherry liqueur, Cointreau, Dom Benedictine, pineapple juice, lime juice, grenadine, bitters, served in a curvy hurricane glass with a garnish that's a generous slice of pineapple and a maraschino cherry. It's a bright pink cocktail with a beautiful look, colour and taste. However, Sir Stamford Raffles outlawed alcohol in the early days of Singapore and may actually be turning in his grave as people continue to throw peanut shells on the floor of the Long Bar as they sip their Singapore slings in a city renowned for its cleanliness.
A gathering place is Raffles Hotel, one of the most renowned hostelries in the East. At tiffin time, the midday meal hour, the veranda of this well-known rendezvous is always crowded with those who come to enjoy cooling drinks, fine music, and pleasant companionship.
However, the hotel has also experienced some turbulent times. In 1931, during the Great Depression, the last of the SARKIES brothers, Arshak, passed away, and later that year the hotel filed for bankruptcy. The hotel was revived and prospered until World War II came to Singapore. The British and Australian forces were quickly defeated by the Japanese, who controlled Singapore, renamed Raffles to Styran Ryokan, Japanese for Light of the South Hotel, until the British regained control at the end of the war. Raffles and the country of Singapore are so intertwined, it is hard to visit Singapore without feeling a strong connection to the Raffles story. Like entangled quantum particles, the name Raffles and Singapore are forever linked in a cosmic dance together across the centuries. Singapore has become the beautiful fusion of every culture and background. This is extended to food. It may just be the food capital of the world. Raffles occupies a beautiful spot in Singapore, with more than a quarter of the estate being gardens, which provide a soothing contrast to the urban hustle and bustle of the surrounding skyscrapers. It's not uncommon to hear the delightful melodies of singing birds beyond the verandas and the rustle of the palm leaves in the breeze. Raffles is truly an oasis of exquisite tranquility. Today the hotel has been lovingly restored by Accor. It now has 115 suites and its food and beverage outlets have been painstakingly refurbished just before the COVID pandemic, whilst being sensitive to the heritage building's striking facade. Here is a snippet from a former executive housekeeper showing how she strives for close to perfection in her housekeeping standards.
Back in the SARKIES suite, Director of Housekeeping Fatma makes a final check of the room to ensure every last detail meets her rigorous standards.
First of all, there are main things that I look for. Each and every corners, each details is perfectly clean. And then I look for the setup. Everything is matching. And then all the things are set up perfectly. I'm just doing some adjustment. What I understand until all those years, there is no perfect room. But whatever you are doing to make it close to perfect, actually.
Raffles has prominently featured in pop culture, including countless travel documentaries, being featured as a Japanese stronghold in Medal of Honor Rising Sun by EA Games, and is the hotel where Nick and Rachel stayed when they arrived in Singapore in the 2018 movie blockbuster Crazy Rich Asians. As you enter Raffles Hotel, you get to walk the red carpet and feel like a star. You are greeted by the Sikh doorman with turbans and fancy military-looking uniforms from a bygone era. As you enter the lobby, your gaze rises up to the high ceilings of the lobby adorned with a crystal chandelier. The uniforms are some of the smartest you'll see in the hotel industry, from a concierge proudly displaying the Cross Keys emblem to the F&B attendants wearing clean white suit jackets. I've been fortunate to stay in many hotels, including mega hotels with thousands of rooms. In contrast, Raffles' 115 rooms allows for a bespoke level of butler-like service across the hotel, and the hotel culture leans into this strength. Each guest interaction is personal and gives staff members a chance to shine, to care for guests and show exceptional attention to detail. This audio clip and similar are courtesy of CAN Asia, with links in the description.
Anne-Sophie, a world-renowned chef with 7 Michelin stars to her name, is a detailed taskmaster.
You know, at the beginning, I was like, not be afraid, but you know, everything is on my shoulder.
Kevin has worked with Anne-Sophie for a decade, so she'll be expecting every dish to be perfection on a plate.
Better in 2 slices.
So I cook first and cut.
No, it's better.
It's better?
It's better. You put the fish a little bit too early.
Anne-Sophie's cooking is known for rigorous techniques and a distinctive style. But above all, the flavours have to soar.
Not too much butter. Add just 1 piece. But very important, when you put your fish, it makes bubble. Not too white, not too dark. It's perfect.
Amazingly, for such a small hotel, there are at least 10 restaurants which draw people back time and time again to experience the creations of some of the world's best chefs, afforded the time, skills, and fresh ingredients to create some remarkable dishes. Raffles has this feeling of opulence. During a stay, you can enjoy room service outside of your suite, at individual chairs and tables, experience the rooftop pool of generous proportions, and all the other facilities you would expect in a 5-star property, such as a well-appointed gym and a health spa. Raffles continues to embody regal elegance and old-world appeal in a city where modern buildings compete to touch the sky. This beautifully preserved colonial-style treasure, declared a national monument by the Singapore government in 1987, takes pride of place in the city. If you've had the privilege of visiting Raffles, I hope this podcast gave you some further insight into the Grand Dame. If not, the next time your travels bring you to Singapore, consider staying in a suite if you have a spare grand or 10, or visit the Long Bar, cast away some peanut shells, and sip a cool cocktail under the gentle breeze of the lovingly restored mechanical fans. Or maybe you would fancy high tea with with sandwiches, savoury treats and delectable sweets fit for royalty. And available at the exquisite Tiffin Room. Raffles has never looked better. There is nowhere else quite like Raffles. Thank you for joining today's episode. I hope you were inspired, amazed and enlightened as we unlocked the secrets of the hotel industry's most iconic leaders and iconic hotels. If you had a wonderful time, the best way to say thank you is to subscribe so that you never miss our monthly episodes. If you love showers in luxury hotels, please check out our tech startup at showeraway.com, where we hope one day to provide people on day trips access to the very best hotel showers in the world. Farewell. Until the next time you check into the Hotel Leaders Podcast.